The screen was awash with the glare of countless phones, the air thick with the hushed expectancy of the crowd. 5 years had passed since Alistair's debut, and he had ascended to the very pinnacle of stardom. Yet, beneath the dazzling veneer, a secret lay nestled in his heart, a woman he had never forgotten, from his darkest days of obscurity to the blinding heights of his fame. I, Guinevere, had walked beside him through the most arduous trials, and in doing so, had come to the bitter realization that I was merely a supporting character in his life's grand narrative. In the saccharine tapestry of a romance novel, the supporting actress is fated to embellish the protagonist's love story. But Alistair had once declared, "If my life were a script, I possess the audacity to tear it asunder for your sake." And I, foolishly, believed him. Alistair was trending again. As a top-tier celebrity, this in itself wasn't unusual, but this time, the buzz revolved around him and Serafina, a junior artist from the same agency. He had debuted 5 years ago, a celestial prodigy descending upon the world. On stage, he radiated an incandescent brilliance. In films, he possessed a captivating presence. Despite his youth, he had already grasped the coveted Best Actor award. Yet, he had remained untouched by scandal, his reputation pristine. There was a photograph, particularly famous, that captured him at his most iconic. He had just descended from a stage bathed in the adoration of a multitude. His silhouette was elongated, elegant. Fans screamed, their voices a tidal wave of sound. The stage lights illuminated one side of his face, revealing the glistening trail of sweat tracing his jawline. His eyes, brimming with youthful arrogance, held a breathtaking allure. But the other half of his face remained shrouded in shadow, cold and impassive, a deity unmoved by earthly temptations, seemingly incapable of succumbing to desire. Half vibrant, half veiled in stillness, he was the undeniable focal point of the entire spectacle. They called Alistair the brightest star in the northern sky, elusive and untouchable, leaving only a sense of distant, awe-inspiring beauty and a bone-chilling coldness in his wake. The hashtag Alistair Serafina was followed by a blazing red, explosive tag. It linked to a video clip from a press conference. Alistair, breaking his usual pattern of choosing large-scale productions, had opted for a historical drama centered around a strong female lead, titled Empress Regnant. He was playing a supporting role to Serafina, a newcomer to the entertainment industry. In the video, a reporter asked Alistair, "Which line from the script do you find most compelling?" He offered a gentle smile. He played a general, devoted to expanding the empire for the female lead. He turned his head, lowering his gaze to Serafina beside him. She barely reached his shoulder, but Alistair, ever the gentleman, bent slightly, mirroring the posture of his character, the young general perpetually kneeling in reverence before his empress. His eyes, shaped like peach blossoms, curved with a profound tenderness as he spoke. "I aspire to be the most radiant jewel adorning your phoenix hairpin. I vow to conquer lands and spread your glorious name far and wide. I yearn to be the most loyal young general in your service, to remain by your side like stars circling the moon. I desire that my surname be forever etched alongside yours in the annals of history. I offer you my all, my youthful empress." A hush fell over the room. Serafina lifted her gaze to meet Alistair's, her eyes shimmering with a gentle, rippling emotion. A cacophony of screams erupted, flashbulbs flared, and countless microphones were thrust forward. The video ended abruptly at that moment. The comments section was a frenzy. Even Alistair's fans were ecstatic. How can this not be love? The young empress and her devoted general, who wouldn't ship them? Alistair's gaze. If that's not smitten, I don't know what is. After all these years, our boy finally has a girl he's interested in. My fingers unconsciously traced the screen, where Alistair's eyes were lowered, brimming with a galaxy of stars, a look I had never witnessed before. I sighed, a helpless, weary sound, and a tear escaped. The inevitable day had finally arrived. I had transmigrated into this novel long ago, when I was 15 and in my second year of high school. It was a sweet romance. The male lead was Alistair, the undisputed king of the entertainment industry, a young and immensely talented actor. He was aloof and detached, reserving his boundless warmth solely for the female lead, Serafina. Their story was one of reunion. They had met in high school. Alistair, born into a prestigious family, was the quintessential crown prince. Serafina was a transfer student, a dancer, with slender legs. According to the plot, Alistair's family would experience a devastating downfall during his senior year. The once exalted young master would be plunged into the depths of despair, only to be redeemed by Serafina, preventing him from succumbing to darkness. Then, due to Serafina's departure abroad and various other circumstances, they would reunite. Years later, Alistair would protect her, nurturing her blossoming career in the entertainment industry, and their relationship would be the subject of everyone's admiration and blessings. However, after my arrival, Serafina's departure abroad occurred much earlier than in the original plot. She left while Alistair was still tentatively exploring his feelings for her, completely missing the pivotal event of the Alistair family's downfall. It was I who embraced that 18-year-old boy who had lost his parents overnight. I stroked his gaunt back, accompanying him through that dark period. He had never been so vulnerable, his eyes red-rimmed, tears silently streaming down his face as he clung to me, his last lifeline. I watched him return to the spotlight. He was, after all, a masterpiece of creation, destined for greatness. He was scouted and drawn into the entertainment world. I attended the premiere of his first film, watching him on the screen, covered in blood and mud, turning in the rain with eyes like daggers. The audience around me gasped, captivated by his performance. I called him as he walked the red carpet, saying, "Alistair, I saw it." When he first performed on stage, I was in the center seats. The entire arena erupted in cheers and applause, countless LED lights illuminating his name, Alistair, Alistair. I knew then that he would never be my young man. I was submerged in the crowd, smiling as he radiated brilliance at the center of the stage, yet tears streamed down my face unnoticed. I had walked with you through the darkest days, but I also knew that your brilliant future did not belong to me. Alistair. Alistair probably didn't know that I was the author of the original novel upon which Empress Regnant, the drama Serafina starred in, was based. I wrote about the general, about the power struggles and the love between the general and the Empress. But those sweet nothings, I would now hear Alistair recite them to Serafina. I am your sharpest sword. My Empress, my devotion lies within the vast expanse of mountains and rivers. Please, witness it. There were countless moments when I realized that, no matter how long I stayed by Alistair's side, this dazzling young man would never be mine. But my desires were modest. I only wished for him to be happy and well. Ding, Cinderella's time is up. Shed the glory that does not belong to you. I slowly finished a bowl of congee, staring blankly at the freesia on the windowsill for a while before returning to my room to pack. My belongings were few, easily fitting into a small suitcase. I tried calling Alistair's phone several times. Finally, on the third attempt, someone answered. It was his assistant. Sister Vivian, Alistair is changing costumes. Before she could finish, the phone was snatched away. He was walking out as he spoke, the background noise receding. Hello. I hadn't intended to cry, but when his deep voice reached my ears, a tear unexpectedly fell. I tilted my head back, recalling our 10 years together, scenes fading and then surging back like a tide. I remembered that line, my Empress, the inexorable trajectory of fate. I took a breath and said, Alistair, I'm leaving. He was momentarily stunned. After a pause, he said in a casual tone, are you going on a trip? Domestic or international? Are you leaving in a few days? Tell Sebastian, he'll book your tickets. Do you want to wait a couple more days? I'll ask my manager to rearrange my schedule so I can go with you. I heard there's a place with beautiful scenery. The sounds around him grew louder. Someone called out, Mr. Alistair, we're ready to shoot. He ignored them. I interrupted his rambling, no, I'm leaving you. I wiped away a tear from my cheek and said softly, goodbye, Alistair. After a moment of silence, I hung up. I was always a coward. I was afraid he would hear my uncontrollable sobbing, and equally afraid he would say a relieved, okay. This small apartment was purchased by Alistair before he became hugely famous. At that time, I had saved a modest amount from my writing royalties, and together with Alistair's contribution, we made the down payment. It was a 2-bedroom, 1 living room apartment. He and I each had a small room. Later, when he became famous, this place was no longer suitable for him. There were too many people here, paparazzi could easily follow him, and his manager wouldn't allow him to be exposed as living with someone during his rising career. I repeatedly explained to people that I was just family, but I knew it was inevitable. I had briefly possessed the warmth of a star, but I was acutely aware that he never belonged to me. He moved to a more secluded residential area, his schedule becoming increasingly packed. He always called me, telling me about the new scripts he received, the new dances he was choreographing, but he was so busy. Later, when I called him, he was always attending events, filming, or preparing for performances, exhaustedly returning my calls when he finished. I felt sorry for him being so tired, so I eventually stopped calling. I didn't have many friends here. After work at the publishing house, I would come back and write. When I was writing Empress Regnant, I created a line for the young general. In the midst of a heavy snowfall, he would ride. Back on his horse, the vast imperial city and thousands of soldiers behind him. He would dismount, kneeling on one knee in the snow before the young empress. I am your sharpest sword. For you, my lady, I will conquer lands. At that moment, I suddenly thought of Alistair. I also wanted to be his sword and shield, but I couldn't do anything. All I could offer was a hug. According to the plot, Alistair would reunite with Seraphina when she and other girls came to the company for auditions. The reunion was described in the book as, they met, yet he remained composed, brushing past the slender Seraphina as if they were strangers. But behind the scenes, he secured the best contract for her and delivered the script of the sure-to-be hit drama to her hands. His usually flamboyant nature was replaced by such cautiousness, leading Seraphina to believe it was her own efforts that had achieved this, filling her with self-satisfaction. This press conference marked the beginning of their ambiguous, sweet romance. I had accompanied him for so many years, finally waiting for her appearance. I finished all the necessary work handovers in the small apartment, then dragged my suitcase to the door. Just as I opened it, I realized it was raining, a heavy downpour that hammered at my heart with a dull ache. I was about to close the door to grab an umbrella when I felt a force push against it. A pale hand, with slender fingers and prominent knuckles, rested on the doorframe. A beautiful silver ring adorned his middle finger. My heart pounded rapidly as I opened the door. Alistair leaned against the frame. Despite the rain outside, he was drenched. Strands of wet hair clung to his exquisite features, dimming his usual vibrant aura. His peach blossom eyes were lowered, revealing a hint of redness. He was still wearing his costume from the set, the wide sleeves haphazardly tied up. Rain streamed down his prominent nose, creating the illusion of tears. He must have rushed here, as he was still slightly out of breath. His thin lips were pressed into a pale line, conveying a sense of apprehension, a stark contrast to his usual detached nonchalance. He looked like a child about to be abandoned. He lowered his gaze, his voice slightly hoarse. He called my name, Guinevere. Where are you going? The rainwater rolled down his jawline and neck, disappearing into the damp folds of his crossed collar. I paused, then asked, You ran away from the set? He interrupted me, bending down slightly to look at me. Where are you going? I'm going back to Seaport City. It's too noisy here. I don't belong here. I want to go back to Seaport City and set off fireworks on the beach at night. I also want to eat the old wontons from that shop downstairs from my home. His knuckles, gripping the doorframe, turned white from exertion. He asked softly, What about me? I saw people moving in the hallway. He was such a high-profile celebrity, I worried about paparazzi and passers-by taking photos. I sighed, stepping aside slightly, inviting him inside. Although he hadn't lived here for a long time, his room and closet were still kept. I urged him to take a hot shower. He looked up at me several times, hesitant. I was both annoyed and amused. I said, I won't leave while you're showering. He let out a soft, oh. His phone was on silent, but missed calls and WeChat messages kept popping up. Alistair clicked his tongue, flipped his phone face down on the coffee table, and grabbed his clothes before heading into the bathroom. I received a call from his assistant, who frantically asked if Alistair was with me. I hummed softly in affirmation, telling her not to worry that he would be back soon. The assistant was relieved. I then called his manager, asking her to handle any potential photos taken of him on his way here. Only a short time had passed, yet I felt a rare moment of disorientation. He was actually very hardworking. Famous stars were often accused of being divas, but he had never acted that way. I accidentally clicked on one of Alistair's new songs. His voice on the recording was unusually tender, like a confession from the galaxy. You're at the center of my world / yet I don't feel anything different. My entire prosperity is crowned for you / who knows this love that doesn't burden you. My heart warmed at the sound, but the comments scrolling across the screen read, Serafina got the lead role. Alistair must have pulled some strings, hidden and restrained. Love is the most moving, guys. I thought about it, feeling embarrassed for my momentary self-indulgence, but according to the original plot, this was how it should be. He wrote songs for her, paved the way for her, and unknowingly delivered the best to her. If his love in high school was like the scorching sun, then now, after enduring hardships, this love had become more profound and subtle, like the shimmering surface of the sea under the moonlight. But anyone's affection for Alistair was understandable, because he was simply a very, very good person. The song was gentle and slow, as if he were singing softly in my ear. I was lost in the melody. Hearing Alistair come out, I instinctively looked up, stopping the song as if trying to hide something. Alistair had changed into a white t-shirt, the neckline revealing a glimpse of his collarbone. His hair was half dry. The shower seemed to have soothed him somewhat, allowing his usual casual demeanor to resurface. He paused upon hearing the familiar melody, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Listening to my new song? I nodded. It's very good. He didn't speak, his ears turning slightly red. He hummed nonchalantly, seemingly indifferent. The atmosphere became strangely quiet, and I didn't know what to say. In a few hours, the train I was taking would depart, and I had to say goodbye to him. Next time, don't just run off without a word. They were all very worried. Alistair usually hated being lectured, but this time he listened quietly. I've already bought my ticket. It's raining outside, so don't bother seeing me off. If you ever think of me, you can come visit me in Seaport City for a beer. It turned out that farewells weren't about being tearful, but rather about maintaining a composed, friendly demeanor. He remained silent for a long time. I sighed, getting up to leave. But as I passed him, he grabbed my wrist. I won't go drinking with you. I won't just happen to pass by Seaport City. He raised his eyes, looking at me stubbornly, his eyes slightly red-rimmed. For a moment, I thought he was going to cry. After all these years, after enduring so much hardship, he had only cried silently in my arms on the afternoon he lost his parents. I patiently bent down slightly. Alistair, have you ever considered that you're just used to my company? Actually, back then, no matter who had come to embrace you, you would have accepted it. He was stunned, his face turning ashen as if he had been insulted. He looked directly at me, almost gritting his teeth. Guinevere, do you have a heart? It could only be you, and it will only ever be you. The situation was tense when my phone rang. Somehow, the ringtone had changed to Alistair's new song, the chorus playing, My entire prosperity is crowned for you / who knows this love that doesn't burden you. I was embarrassed. Alistair was still holding my wrist, so I answered the phone with my other hand. The call was from the Empress Regnant production team. They had recently announced the casting and held a press conference. Filming had probably already begun. They wanted me to join the crew to oversee the plot, working with the screenwriter to refine the story and make adjustments. I hesitated. If I joined the crew, I would have many encounters with Alistair and Serafina. I had just decided to leave. The person on the phone was very polite. We all really want to present your work to the audience in the best possible way, so we sincerely hope you can participate. I eventually nodded. I suddenly remembered that Alistair didn't know I had written this novel. I looked down, only to see a small smile playing on his lips, which had previously been pressed into a thin line. He leaned back slightly relaxed, his exquisite features glowing. He showed no surprise. I raised my voice. You knew I wrote Empress Regnant? He remained composed, sinking into the sofa. His legs were so long that he had to bend them to avoid hitting the coffee table. He said lazily, Teacher Guinevere, please guide me. It was just like that summer years ago. He sat by the window, the air filled with the chirping of cicadas. The young man's profile was captivating. He cocked his lips and said, It's Guinevere, isn't it? Please guide me. He was always like this, even though he never needed my help. I instructed Alistair to keep his distance from me on set, to act as if we didn't know each other. He raised his eyes, giving a non-committal, oh, with a faint smile. Empress Regnant primarily told the story of a generation of empresses, from princess to ruler of the world. Serafina played the female lead, Huang Yu. The male lead was her childhood sweetheart, the white-robed prime minister. The second male lead was a hostage prince from an enemy country. The third male lead was the general, Song Ran, played by Alistair. His role wasn't large. It seemed he had taken the part primarily to support Serafina. The production team arranged a room for me at the hotel. After settling in, I left my room and ran into Percival, who played the male lead. He had entered the entertainment industry during his university years and continued on that path after graduation, now a well-respected and talented actor. Coincidentally, he was also a classmate from my university, from the same department. Because his name and mine, when combined, formed a line from the classic poem. Guan Guan Ju Jiu, Zai He Ji Zhou, the ospreys cry, Guan Guan, on the islet in the river. It had caused many humorous misunderstandings during our university days. Percival was wearing a mask, revealing his dark eyes. He was tall, with a refined, gentle demeanor. He was momentarily surprised to see me, but probably. Having been briefed by his manager, he quickly recovered, his eyes crinkling behind the mask. So it really is you. Long time no see, Guinevere. I said, yes, it is. It was the afternoon, and the production team had scheduled a script reading. Before filming, the main actors were to read through the script together, trying to get a feel for the emotions. He looked down at me. Since we bumped into each other, shall we go together? I had no reason to refuse, so I nodded. Percival and I had been acquaintances with a polite distance at university. His speech was appropriately courteous, so resuming contact wasn't particularly awkward. When we entered the room, most people had already arrived, but Alistair, lounging lazily in a corner, was immediately noticeable. He wore a black pullover, one hand resting on the script. His gaze lifted, first landing on me, then glancing at Percival beside me. The corners of his mouth turned down slightly, seemingly displeased and aloof. Once everyone had arrived, introductions were made for each character. I hadn't seen Serafina in a long time. She was even more ethereal in person than in the photos online. Our eyes met, and she smiled faintly, a shallow dimple appearing at the corner of her lips, showing no surprise. Everyone went through their lines. This scene was the first meeting between General Song Ran, played by Alistair, and the female lead, Huang Yu. Song Ran was not from a noble family. His youth was marked by tragedy. He was a street ruffian, fighting with beggars for scraps of food. It was until Huang Yu appeared, like a glimmer of light illuminating his hopeless life. He was acutely aware of the disparity in their social status. He joined the army, striving relentlessly to become her subordinate. This scene depicted Song Ran, still in his teens, beaten and bruised, lying in the mud in the pouring rain, when he saw Wang Yu's luxurious carriage, adorned with golden bells, pass by. Alistair quickly immersed himself in the role. He was still wearing the black hoodie, but he sat up straight, holding the script. His expression, however, was indistinguishable from that of the beggar on the verge of death in the rain. He was shivering with cold, yet he struggled to keep his eyes open, fearing that if he closed them, he would become another lifeless body on the roadside. Serafina, holding the script, recited her lines, calling out to her maidservant, leaning languidly against the back of the chair, just like the pampered young princess. Xiao, why has the carriage stopped? It was the prone figure of Song Ran blocking the noblewoman's carriage. The coachman's whip was about to strike Song Ran. Huang Yu lifted the heavy purple curtain of the carriage, looking down from her elevated position, and lightly intervened. Serafina delivered the princess's lines with a measured tone. Never mind, it's just a beggar. Have someone take him to a doctor and leave some money. Song Ran was almost blinded by the rain, barely able to see. All he could make out was a corner of the tall, ornate carriage curtain, revealing the luxurious and extravagant interior. The torrential rain could not penetrate the carriage. The elegant, noble young lady briefly leaned out, effortlessly granting him a chance at life. Alistair recited, softly, the script describing Song Ran lying in the mud, covered in wounds, almost unable to open his eyes due to the rain. Yet, as if afraid of shattering the beautiful dream in the rain, he asked with great impertinence, "Who are you?" The young lady chuckled softly, a sound that could be interpreted as disdain or disbelief. She said nothing, and the heavy purple curtain closed again. This was their first encounter. It became an unforgettable dream for Song Ran. Alistair leaned back, momentarily returning to his usual aloof and detached self. There's something I don't understand, Alistair spoke up. Even if Huang Yu extended a hand in his most desperate moment, offering him a few silver coins, Song Ran might feel grateful, might repay her with his life, but he wouldn't fall head over heels in love with her. I looked at him. Our eyes met for a second. Alistair leaned forward, composed, unless she offered him an embrace in the pouring rain, a warm embrace that could ward off all the cold. Alistair was resolute, as if for a moment he was Song Ran, utterly convinced. I was taken aback, memories flooding back. I composed myself and spoke, but that's impossible. Huang Yu's character at this point is that of a noble young lady. She has compassion for commoners, but she would never casually embrace a mud-covered, possibly dying, unknown young man. Alistair's eyes were dark, with tiny specks of something swirling within, like the reflection of a starry sky. Serafina, however, suddenly spoke, but if it were a maidservant, it wouldn't be a problem. If Huang Yu's maidservant gave him the embrace instead, it would be plausible. But why would a maidservant embrace a dying beggar? Alistair leaned back, curling his lips slightly, his expression unreadable. Who knows? Perhaps out of pity. I stared at him, stunned. I suddenly remembered the year the Alistair family fell from grace. The once exalted young master was plunged into the dirt. He lost his parents and relatives overnight. The bellflowers were discarded in the wind. I slowly approached him, gently embracing that lost and suffering boy. Did he think it was pity? I never got an answer. But this part of the plot was slightly altered. In the scene of Song Ran's first encounter in the rain, played by Alistair, there was now a misplaced embrace. After the script reading, I returned to the hotel. As I passed the fire escape, a hand suddenly grabbed my wrist, pulling me into the darkness. The door was ajar, letting in a sliver of light. I almost screamed, my palms sweating. I was pressed against the wall, Alistair's height making the space feel incredibly cramped. I could smell his snow-like scent in every breath. I looked up, utterly incredulous, whispering furiously, "What are you doing?" He leaned down slightly, a hint of a smile in his peach blossom eyes. "You said I had to pretend I don't know you in front of everyone, so I can only talk to you here, right?" I shifted uncomfortably, leaning back to appear more confident, but inadvertently, my forehead brushed against his jaw, a warm, fleeting touch. A moment of silence. I asked, "What is it?" Someone walked past in the hallway, seemingly his assistant, muttering, "Alistair was just here a moment ago. Now he's gone." I turned my head back, meeting his dark eyes. The scattered traces of a smile had vanished. The light filtering through the partially open fire escape door fell faintly on his face, making this face, hailed as the pinnacle of beauty in the entertainment industry, appear even more profound and captivating. He licked his lips, leaning against the wall with one hand, lowering his head to be level with my eyebrows. He pressed his lips together several times before finally speaking. I was starting to think he was as nervous as I was. No matter how grand the occasion, how large the stage, Alistair never experienced stage fright. Yet, in this silent, confined space, in this small, audience-less fire escape, he thought about a sentence many times before daring to speak it. He asked softly, "Who would be willing to give a person who has fallen into the abyss an embrace?" I looked at his lowered peach blossom eyes, momentarily unable to discern whether he was asking about Song Ran in the drama or Alistair in reality. When Alistair was 18, he was not greeted by a lavish birthday celebration befitting a crown prince. First, Serafina left the country without a word, rendering the flowers he had intended for his confession useless. Then, the Alistair family went bankrupt. His father committed suicide in prison, and his mother, unable to cope with the shock, succumbed to illness and died. Overnight, he went from being a celebrated young master to an orphan. At that time, I searched all over Seaport City, finally finding him in an old alley. He was leaning against a dilapidated concrete wall, the setting sun casting long shadows. The freshly picked flowers were scattered on the ground. Even though I had found him, I hesitated to approach. I wasn't Serafina. To him, I was probably just someone whose name he knew. Who would want their vulnerability and despair exposed to a stranger? What was I thinking then? I simply looked at him, feeling immense sadness, thinking that he probably needed a hug. I had nothing, but I had a hug. I slowly walked over to him. He leaned against the wall, his long, narrow eyes glaring at me fiercely, yet they were clearly red-rimmed. He was stunned to see me, silently, lowering his gaze to the flowers on the ground again. My heart ached. I thought he would tell me to get lost, but he just clenched his jaw, the line of his jaw hard as stone. He turned his face away, covering his eyes with his hand. I saw tears seeping through his fingers. The usually proud young man was as fragile as snow under the setting sun. That moment, the setting sun fell into my heart. I had never been so brave in my life. I took a step forward and gently embraced him. Don't be sad. I'll always be with you. I'll always be with you. Now, 25-year-old Alistair was asking me who would embrace a person who had fallen into the abyss. My palms were damp with sweat. I lowered my eyes and said, I don't know. Alistair moved closer, his features hardening, speaking with self-deprecating sarcasm. You don't know? Then let me tell you. Do you know what pity is, Guinevere? Seeing a mud-covered, hopeless song ran. To show their pity, some people would offer money, some would offer an embrace. What about you? What were you thinking? I was stunned. He leaned in close, like a sigh, like a plea, the light and shadow reflecting in his eyes. Tomorrow, for that scene where Song Ran first meets Huang Yu in the rain, the script has been temporarily changed. They haven't found a suitable actor to embrace Song Ran. It's just a few seconds of footage. Will you act with me? Don't be afraid, I'll guide you. It can't be anyone but you. I studied his features intently, a hint of madness within their beauty. He pleaded, just consider it as accompanying me one last time. Then this journey, I'll accompany you one more time. The last time. I whispered, okay. He was so close, his scent filling the small space. My heart felt as if it were buried in snow, freezing cold, yet still uncontrollably moved by him. I moved to leave, and he didn't stop me. Just as I reached for the door, he suddenly called out to me. I turned my head. Alistair had one hand in his pocket, his features shadowed. He looked at me steadily and said, Guinevere. I thought he was going to say something, but he simply said softly, good night. I left the fire escape stealthily, looking left and right, as if I had really done something shameful. Alistair let out a soft laugh behind me. The next day, for the scene of Song Rant's first encounter with Huang Yu, because I had a somehow added role, the director asked Seraphina's makeup artist to do my makeup as well while Seraphina was getting ready. Seraphina had a private makeup room. I was about to knock on the door when I overheard my name being mentioned inside. My raised hand paused midair. Inside the makeup room, Seraphina's assistant asked, Sister Seraphina, why did you suggest letting her share your scene? This character's appearance is completely baffling. Seraphina let out a noncommittal laugh. Do you think it was my idea? It was all him. She suddenly stopped, then continued. Never mind. It's a role that doesn't even count. As a supporting character, adding it or not doesn't matter, it won't affect anything. It just lets her experience even more clearly what it means to be a supporting role. My expression remained unchanged as I withdrew my hand. I turned around, only to see Percival standing behind me, having probably overheard everything. I felt a bit awkward, pointing to the door and mouthing, I'll go in later. Percival couldn't help but smile slightly. He said softly, someone's talking bad about you, and you're still so calm, Teacher Guan? I tilted my head up slightly to look at him, whispering no. I wasn't calm. What she said was true. Both on screen and off, I was a character that didn't even qualify as supporting. When filming commenced, a torrential downpour began, eliminating the need for the crew to simulate rain. I played Huang Yu's maidservant. As the carriage moved forward in the heavy rain, it encountered an obstacle, a dying young man lying in the mud. I stood up, lifting the carriage curtain for Huang Yu to see. The carriage was very close to the fallen youth. From my vantage point, I could see the rain collecting in the small hollows on either side of his prominent nose bridge. The rain-soaked road was muddy and difficult to navigate. The young man, covered in dirt and grime, curled up slightly, mingling with the cold, wet mud. A faint trace of blood spread around him. Long ago, a harsh critic had described Alistair as possessing a captivating aura. I, lacking acting experience, was instantly drawn into the scene by him. He was the most desperate of youths, a beggar whom only the rootless rain was willing to pity. Song Rant's eyelids fluttered slightly. The rain lashed at his wounds, stinging his eyes. His complexion was incredibly pale, yet he strained to lift his gaze, peering at me through the dense curtain of rain. I even thought I saw a hint of pale yellow in his eyes. Behind him, there was only the relentless downpour. He was a beggar, an outcast, possessing nothing. Huang Yu's voice sounded from behind. Xiao Huai, what is it? I snapped out of the trance his gaze had induced. I replied, there's a dying beggar blocking the road. The carriage can't proceed. Song Rant's black hair was splayed out, mixed with the mud. He looked up at the carriage, which shouldn't have opened its curtains to him, shrinking back in shame. He tried to struggle to his feet, but his legs were broken. He couldn't and could only inch towards the roadside. He fell into the mud, silent, the rain pelting his body. That moment struck me with unparalleled force. I understood why the maidservant would give him an embrace. Who, in such a state of destitution, could still maintain a shred of pride and dignity? Anyone who saw him would be moved. I thought of 18-year-old Alistair. After the fall of the Jiang family, flowers no longer lingered for him. Malice surged towards him. After that embrace, I didn't see him for a long time. I first found him at dusk. They said the Jiang family had left behind many debts, and Alistair was living a hard life. What was merely a few lines in the novel was, in reality, several years in the life of a proud young man. It was the first time I had heard Alistair apologize and beg so humbly. I hid in the shadows of an alleyway, leaning against the wall, listening to Alistair silently endure a beating. He didn't fight back. Didn't say much. I covered my ears and cried silently. After a long time, he slowly leaned against the wall, stood up, and walked out. The sky outside was so beautiful, filled with the colors of sunset. I followed him at a distance, walking through the bustling crowds. The long street was bathed in twilight. Gradually, the people thinned out. He stopped, waited a long time, then turned around, his gaze fixed on me. I could no longer hide. I slowly walked up to him. His brow and the corners of his lips were bruised, showing traces of blood. His eyes were filled with a pent-up frustration. He looked down at me. How long have you been following me? How much longer do you want to watch my humiliation? I looked up. I just wanted to be with you. He curled his lips, speaking coldly. I don't need it. Do you understand, Guinevere? My eyes stung, and I averted my gaze. I knew he didn't need my company, but what could I do? I couldn't do anything. But he suddenly softened his voice. Don't cry. Don't bother with me. Go back. In that instant, Alistair seemed to merge with Song Ran in the mud and rain. I got out of the carriage, the umbrella tilting in the downpour. The cold was bone-chilling. I gently embraced him, as if reaching across time to embrace the Alistair of years ago. I whispered, young hero, the road is long. Cherish your life. The sound of the rain faded. I heard the fervent beat of his heart beneath the cold rain. 18-year-old Alistair, 25-year-old Alistair, the road is indeed long. The director called cut on the scene. I was still embracing Alistair. An assistant rushed over with an umbrella to shield us from the rain. I saw his eyes, bright and persistent beneath his rain-soaked hair. My heart skipped a beat. I released him, his warm hand brushing against my skin. I went to the changing room to change clothes. Unexpectedly, I met Percival outside. He was holding a cup of warm ginger tea, offering it to me. I was stunned. He smiled, to ward off the cold. I thanked him and took it. The warmth was indeed comforting, but I couldn't stand the taste of ginger, so I could only sip it slowly. Percival was handsome. With a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, he was the epitome of a refined scoundrel. Someone had previously created a fan-made video pairing him and Alistair, which had been briefly popular. Thinking of that video made me want to smile. Percival raised an eyebrow. What is it? I shook my head, taking a small sip of tea. I thought of something happy. Percival didn't press further, smiling. Your first time acting, you immersed yourself well. Hearing him say that, I relaxed slightly. I was worried that my performance wouldn't be good enough, dragging down the quality of this primetime drama. But in my heart, I thought I was able to immerse myself because I saw Alistair in the rain. He didn't have a single line, yet every movement was heartbreaking. I was still thinking about Seraphina's unspoken hymn. Who wanted me to play this role? Was it Alistair? But why? I had been caught in the rain and had drunk hot tea. My mind felt a bit sluggish. Just as I was about to speak, I saw Alistair's figure. He walked over, carrying a cup, his expression not particularly pleasant, his lips still pale. He naturally took the warm ginger tea I had barely touched, ignoring Percival, and handed me the cup he was holding. If you don't like ginger, don't drink it. Sebastian just bought you a hot drink. His attitude was familiar, but his gaze was not particularly polite. He finished speaking, put his hands in his pockets, slowly looked up, and said indifferently, "Mr. Percival, is there something you need?" Percival raised an eyebrow, glanced at me, and smiled unchanged. "Since you two have something to discuss, I'll take my leave." I watched Percival walk away, feeling a bit annoyed. Weren't we supposed to pretend we don't know each other, that we're not close? Alistair was tall. He looked down at me, giving a cold laugh. "Sure, Teacher Guan. With me, you pretend not to know me. With him, you force yourself to drink ginger tea you don't like, and you chat and laugh." I blinked, but I keenly sensed his hostility towards Percival. "Do you two have a history?" Alistair was briefly silent. He averted his gaze and said no. He added, "Not really." He didn't say anything. It's a one-sided issue. Quite self-righteous. "All right, young Master Alistair." During a break on set, I passed by Percival. His tablet was playing the recently aired episode, precisely the scene of Song Rant's first encounter. With Huang Yu, frozen at the frame where the pale yellow-clad young woman embraced Song Ran in the rain. The rain rolled down his face, like tears. Alistair's face was truly a marvel of creation, beautiful from every angle. Percival took off his headphones and called out to me, pointing to the empty seat beside him. I instinctively looked around. Percival chuckled. "Don't worry, he's not here." Percival tilted his head and smiled. His temperament was cool and detached. In the drama, he was the white-robed prime minister. Outside, he was a cool and detached heartthrob. But when he smiled, there was a gentle warmth, like a slowly flowing spring. "He's very hostile towards me." I shook my head. I didn't know the reason either. Percival tilted his tablet. I curiously leaned in to look, feeling a novel sensation seeing myself on screen. I didn't expect it to air so soon. Percival hummed, then unexpectedly said, "No one expected him to play Song Ran." My interest was suddenly extinguished, like snow covering a flame. I withdrew my gaze, replying yes. Yes, who could have imagined that he, so proud, would be willing to do this for Serafina? I looked into the distance. The vast crew and countless cameras surrounded Alistair and Serafina. They were rehearsing their lines. I couldn't see clearly through the crowd. Percival followed my gaze. I said softly, "Because of Serafina." He suddenly paused, his slender fingers tapping lightly on the small table. After a long time, he chuckled, "Guinevere, you really are quite dense." I turned my head. Percival said, "You haven't realized, have you, that Alistair treats you very differently? It's like a long, long time ago, in university, when the whole college knew I liked you, and only you were unaware." I was stunned. Percival's words were too sudden. I didn't know how to respond. He was very calm, touching his forehead and chuckling softly. "It was many years ago. Don't be nervous." I recalled what Serafina had said in the makeup room. Someone who didn't even count as a supporting character couldn't affect the plot. I shook my head. He wasn't like this before. Now I paused, adding, "He's just used to having me around for so long. He doesn't want me to leave." Percival answered me patiently, like a senior guiding a naive junior. "Many people want to get close to Alistair. Why did he only keep you? Guinevere, you should take a good look for yourself." I was at a loss for words. Percival changed the subject. "Have you seen the episode? The reviews are very good." I was still lost in thought. On the other side, filming had ended. Alistair walked towards us against the light, the surroundings. Gilded in gold. His peach blossom eyes were half open, glancing at Percival and me with indifference. The director was very satisfied with the recently filmed content, cheerful. Seeing Percival and me, he was inspired to recite a line of poetry, "Guan guan ju jiu, zai he ji zhou." Alistair stopped impatiently, casting a cold glance at the director, forcing him to swallow the next line. He probably felt it was pointless. He turned and walked in another direction. Percival raised his chin, gesturing, "What, are you not going to comfort him?" I watched his retreating back, feeling somewhat helpless. I shook my head. "Never mind. I'm tired." Actually, the other parts of the plot hadn't been significantly altered. The drama was being filmed and aired simultaneously. The filming progress in Reality had reached the point where Huang Yu was about to ascend to power through schemes and machinations, while only the first episode had aired online. I only saw the finished product when I went online. Because they had teased Alistair's appearance in the first episode, the hype was high. I turned off the overwhelming barrage of comments and focused on watching the drama. The beginning was a summary of Huang Yu's daily life and background. Towards the end of the episode was that rainy scene. I was lost in thought for a long time. I turned on the comments and rewatched it. The screen went from a unified, my heart aches for song ran, and how can Alistair be in the mud, to an embrace. He got an embrace. Side couple? I'm shipping them, guys, and Alistair's acting is amazing. I was watching on my tablet in the lounge. Just as I was about to put it away, a voice suddenly spoke. The internet is shipping you too. Serafina stood before me, probably having glanced at the screen. Her assistant's voice was a bit sharp. This was originally Sister Serafina's role. The words weren't pleasant. I straightened my back and looked up. Serafina smiled and replied to her assistant, "It's fine, it's just a minor role with a few lines. It's just that Alistair is so popular, so there are more people shipping them." I asked, puzzled, "But weren't you at the script reading? Why didn't you raise any objections then?" Serafina probably didn't expect me to question her. Her smile faltered slightly. I didn't care about her minor displeasure. The assistant spoke again, "It's fine. In a while, Alistair will release a new song with a music video, and Sister Serafina will be the female lead. Who cares about this little bit of online buzz?" My hand, which was packing my things, paused. I remembered that this was indeed the case. According to the original plot, Alistair would release a new song, and the female lead of the music video would naturally be Serafina, propelling her to greater heights. I lowered my eyes. Very good. Everything was proceeding according to the original plot. I would naturally withdraw, no longer needing to waver. On set, Serafina and Alistair's interactions were basically zero, but who could know the love that had accumulated over the years behind this? But I heard a casual and mocking voice. The newcomer chuckled, leaning against the door frame. His peach blossom eyes were affectionate when he smiled, but when he didn't, as he was now, he was truly cold. Alistair leaned against the door, lazily retorting, "Oh? Is that so?" Serafina and her assistant both looked over, their faces slightly pale. "How come I don't know I have a new song?" Serafina called him, "Brother Alistair." Alistair raised his eyelids, speaking coldly, "Are we close?" I looked at Alistair, then at Serafina. Alistair suddenly looked at me, his peach blossom eyes smiling, suddenly dispersing the cold wind, scattering petals in their wake. He extended his hand. "Guinevere, are you not coming over?" He asked me to wait outside for a while. After about a minute, he came out. I didn't hear clearly what was said, but he said it was fine. Alistair lowered his eyes to look at me. "You didn't come to comfort me, so I had to come find you. But why is it that as soon as I arrive, I see you being bullied, classmate Guinevere?" I belatedly realized that Alistair was standing up for me. My heart fluttered with a bit of joy. Happiness surged, but I still reminded him, "She's Serafina." Alistair bent down slightly. His scent was like snow. "So what if she's Serafina?" I was speechless. What could I say? Serafina is the person you were ambiguous with at the press conference, the person you were willing to play a supporting role for, the female lead arranged in your life script. Finally, I just looked up and said softly, "She's your female lead." Alistair was stunned. He looked into my eyes and slowly said, "She's not." He took another step closer, his thin lips pressed tightly. "Guinevere, you asked me if I was just used to having you by my side. I said it was never habit. But I also want to ask you, have you been with me all these years just because of your pity? You don't ask about the press conference, you don't ask why I wanted you to play Xiao Huai. You act like a supremely noble person, giving a person in the abyss a little light. When he finally climbs out, you say nothing and just want to leave." Alistair's peach blossom eyes were red-rimmed. A tear clung to his lower lashes, like a deity suddenly revealing a weakness. He suddenly extended his long arms and gave me a very light hug, as light as a feather's touch, yet filled with the scent of snow. Alistair said softly, "Go." My eyes stung and I felt tears welling up. I said, "Alistair, but what if life is a script? Whether it's me, you, Serafina, or Percival, we're all characters in the script. Fate is predetermined. My life is not a script that can be decided. Please believe me, Even if this is a script, I have the power to change it. Alistair did indeed have the power to change the script, at least in this drama. He managed, solely through the scene of the embrace in the rain in the first episode and a series of subsequent performances, without adding lines or changing the plot, to make the audience imagine 800 rounds of love and hate between him and Xiao Huai. Back on set, I was sitting by the monitor. Alistair was scrolling through his phone without looking up, a smile playing on his lips, seemingly very pleased. I looked at him several times before he finally deigned to glance at me, his voice low. "What?" I turned my head, saying nothing. But he held up his phone, bringing it closer to me. It was the comments from netizens about Xiao Huai and Songran. I felt a headache looking at the screen filled with exclamation marks, but I still smiled faintly. His profile was slightly turned, the line from his nose bridge to his jawline utterly perfect. I brought up that press conference. Alistair glanced at me sideways, finally willing to ask me. He curled his lips, casually saying, testing the fans' reaction to my dating. I asked further. Alistair turned to look at me seriously. I sensed a long time ago that Seraphina's existence is very important to you. If you believe I'm deeply in love with her, you should come closer and find out for yourself, instead of running away. If you had come closer, you would have realized that, for all these years, you have always been at the center of my world. The surrounding noise faded. I suddenly realized that this world was not a cold, flat page being opened. Each person's destiny was not predetermined. I was not someone's supporting character. I was the master of my own life. If I didn't even have the courage to reach out, how could I say I truly loved? Empress Regnant was a huge success after its broadcast, with high ratings and excellent reviews. After work, I still decided to return to Seaport City. While I was packing my luggage, Percival knocked on the door to say goodbye. He said some polite farewells, then leaned against the door and said to me, "Actually, I met Alistair a long time ago." I waited for him to continue, puzzled. His eyes held a hint of apology. It was at our university's anniversary celebration. After the event, we went to eat. It was also that time I was planning to confess to you. Those people were teasing us. He and I looked at each other from afar for a while, then he left. His expression was so sad. After he left, I realized he had come to find you. In the end, I didn't tell you. I inexplicably recalled the image of 20-year-old Alistair. He had once stood under a streetlight, trying to light a cigarette. His hand trembled for a long time, and he couldn't light it. He stepped back coldly, his back slightly bent, asking me if I pitied him. I only now realized that he had come looking for me. Alistair wasn't on set today. I only received his message after I boarded the train. He sent me a question mark. I saw, typing, displayed for a long time, finally sending 4 words, "Be careful on the way." After a while, he sent 2 more words, "Wait for me." I said, okay. The first thing I did when I got home was to eat the old wontons from the shop downstairs. I was a regular, and the owner recognized me, smiling. "Why didn't you come with your boyfriend to eat?" My boyfriend? Yeah, that tall, thin, very handsome young man. After you went to university, he often came here to eat. I bit into a wonton, the skin thin and the filling generous. The shop was playing music, coincidentally Alistair's song from a while back. "You're at the center of my world / yet I don't feel anything different. My entire prosperity is crowned for you / who knows this love that doesn't burden you." I suddenly realized that, perhaps for all these years, it hadn't been just me following him. Empress Regnant continued to be popular, with 2 episodes airing per week. It was still difficult. I went for a walk at dusk. I happened to see a large LED screen hanging on a building, advertising Alistair's concert in Seaport City a week later. The phone rang, and I answered it casually. The other end was silent for a long time. I looked up at the LED screen. On the giant poster, Alistair was coldly half-closing his eyes. The lighting was excellent, making it impossible to look away. At the top were 3 words, Aurora Borealis. He finally called out after a long pause, "Guinevere." I smiled and said, "Congratulations on wrapping up filming, Mr. Alistair." I thought for a moment, then quietly added, "Xiao Wai knows that Song Ran loves her." I hung up the phone. After his debut, Alistair had kept his personal information very private, maintaining a low profile despite his high fame. He didn't appear on variety shows, yet suddenly a video appeared. It was a video from my university's anniversary celebration. He was at the very edge of the crowd. The camera swept past him. The resolution wasn't high, but he was looking intently at the stage, his expression uncharacteristically relaxed, weary yet affectionate. The video was only a few seconds long, but it caused a huge stir. Fans were discussing the video, and through it, they almost traced it back to me. Alistair's rarely updated Weibo account finally posted a message. Shuh, don't say it. The fans seemed to understand something, uniformly keeping quiet, as if the whole world was cooperating with him. Some of Alistair's older videos were unearthed, him being typecast and playing minor roles, him sweating profusely while fixing a car. People were shocked to realize that this young man had also had dim eyes, had also experienced setbacks and despair. Who picked him up and dusted him off? Had he worked so hard all these years, perhaps to straighten his spine again, but when that day finally arrived, like Song ran, he found it difficult to take even a single step forward? When Alistair's concert began, I bought a ticket and entered with the people who loved him. The venue was filled with light sticks. I mingled with the crowd, listening to them, loving his songs, loving him, feeling a sense of peace in my heart. The entire venue was dark, except for him on stage, radiating brilliance. It was the first time I heard Alistair sing Aurora Borealis in its entirety. From the Aurora Borealis dives into the polar night / embracing the 18-year-old him, to my entire prosperity is crowned for you, the entire audience listened in silence. He was now like that most famous photograph of him. The light illuminated one side of his face, while the other half was immersed in shadow. He should have looked like an impassive deity, but he was playing the piano, his features filled with gentleness. And so the deity fell tonight. Half vibrant, half silent, he was the most dazzling light in the entire venue, distant and awe-inspiring, but he was singing about his Aurora Borealis. After Aurora Borealis ended, the venue was silent for a long time. Affection was contagious, everyone was moved by him. Alistair suddenly chuckled, breaking the silence. He said, "I apologize. I lied to everyone at the Empress Regnant press conference some time ago. My favorite line is not that long sentence." He lowered his gaze, smiling. "I only got one sentence right. I hope my name can be remembered alongside hers." These two sentences contain too much information. First, denying the possibility of a relationship with Serafina, and second, that he indeed had someone in mind. The audience was like boiling water, bubbling with excitement. Alistair surveyed the audience, looking at me. Knowing that he couldn't possibly see me among so many people, I still instinctively held my breath. "She is my Aurora Borealis. She once asked me if I would fall in love with anyone who approached me in my most difficult time." He replied decisively, looking up slightly across the silent sea of people, starlight surging in his eyes, like unshed tears, meeting my gaze. "No. Except for you, no one else could approach me. It could only be you. It must be you. It could only be you. It must be you. Thank you for your appearance, my Aurora Borealis. From 18 to 25, I love you the most. I only love you." He shared his brilliance with me. Alistair paused for a long time. The audience almost believed that Alistair's her was in the venue. But Alistair turned around. "Thank you all for coming, but there's no need to pursue who she is. My entire prosperity can be crowned for her, but it cannot add even the slightest burden to her." Finally, Guan Guan Ju Jiao, Zai He Ji Zhou, Yao Tiao Shu Nu, Jun Zi Hao Qiao, the ospreys cry, Guan Guan, on the islet in the river. The modest, retiring, virtuous, young lady, for our prince a good mate she. The audience was silent for a moment, then erupted in screams. #Alistair Confession immediately shot to the top of the trending list. The wonton shop was still open in the evening. As soon as I entered, I saw 2 bellflowers on the table. The owner saw me and smiled. "Young lady, your boyfriend just left. He just put these flowers here." I was surprised, but I still resisted the urge to go out and look for Alistair, slowly finishing a bowl of wontons. After paying, I casually took one of the bellflowers. It was almost dark. Seaport City was by the sea, and it was slightly cool at night. There was no one on the road. The sea breeze ruffled my hair, but my heart was very peaceful. I thought, if I walked slowly, I would eventually meet him. So many years had passed, I could wait a little longer. I walked all the way to the beach, the evening breeze gentle. I turned around helplessly, and Alistair walked towards me, carrying 2 cans of beer. He was wearing a black hoodie. Because there was no one around, he had removed the things covering his face. His legs were long, and he walked quickly. Behind him, a crescent moon hung in the seaport city sky, a pristine white. My heart was fluttering, yet calm like the surface of the sea. I felt like I had been waiting for this moment for so many years. He lowered his head. I didn't know what to say. He lit a sparkler he had taken out of his pocket, his eyes filled with tenderness. He handed the sparkler to me. For you. He reined in his usual flamboyance, looking down at me earnestly, his ears turning slightly red, as if time had rewound to his 18-year-old self, cautious and joyful. I love you. I said, I know. I said, me too. I reversed time, just to meet you. His hand intertwined with mine, warm and dry, like spring blooming in a secret corner. I looked up, and he gave me a kiss, as cool as moonlight. Years of love, finally fulfilled. I once thought I was a supporting character in the book, but I didn't know someone had quietly placed me in his heart, year after year. You must also be someone's aurora borealis. The end.